Hey there, how you doing? So, different kind of video today. Ants. You guys ever think about ants? I do. And a while ago, I was thinking of a story I read back in 6th grade. I can't remember the title of it, or who wrote it, but I remember that it left quite the impression on 6th grade year old me. How old are 6th graders? And I yearn to find this story again because it is quite the entertaining little read for people with mental deficiencies, like myself. So, in an effort to do this, I need your help. Also, it's just funny to do it this way. I'm going to describe the story completely from memory, unscripted, and hopefully it bears some fruit. So let's get into it. Our setting is some kind of feudal Japan-esque village. And there's this village chief. We'll name him Steve. Steve is a very stern man, but is also quite the family man with, I think, a daughter, maybe. Anyway, Steve's running his village. And one day, some guys run up over the hill from somewhere, and they say, "There's a bunch of ants, dude. There's ants. They're coming. Ants. We gotta run. There's ants." Shit, chicken in my throat. Everyone in the village laughs and scoffs at the men. I think Steve does as well.
You fucker! You fucking bitch!
But he says, "Listen, I'm him." The two men then leave them off with another warning, saying, "The ants will be here within 1 day, I think." And then they run off. But then, suddenly, some guy up in a tower, I think, says, "Steve, take a look at this." Steve climbs the tower, and with his telescope, he looks out onto the horizon and sees a moving tide of black mass rolling over the hills toward their village. And Steve says, "That's a lot of ants." So then Steve goes down to the village and says, "We got ants." And everyone's like, "And?" "So we're gonna dig 2 ditches and we're gonna stop them." And everyone's like, "Okay." So they spend the rest of the day digging ditches around the entire village, 2 of them parallel to each other. And once they're done, they fill one up with water and they fill the other up with gasoline. I don't know how common gasoline is or was back in feudal Japan, or if this was even set in feudal Japan. Moving on. Then, dawn breaks. They see the wave of ants cresting over the hill toward the village, and everyone stops. And then, some guy goes out there past the 2 ditches and says, "They're just ants, guys. What's the big deal?" Anyway, Kyle the ant wrangler walks out there to the ants, and the ants immediately swarm him, go up his legs and cover him completely, and everyone is kind of horrified as, he screams, and then the ants just, get off him and reveal that he's turned into nothing but bones. They ate him. They picked his skeleton clean after seeing these voracious ants kill one of their villagers. Steve stops and looks at everyone, says, "That's a lot of ants." The ants get to the first trench that's filled with water, and they start just pouring into it, just all going in non-stop. They just right into that motherfucker like lemmings off a cliff. Those motherfuckers keep pouring in there. Everyone kind of steps over the first trench and is like, ants are dumb. So they're just sitting there watching these ants drown themselves. Everyone kind of just chills out. It's like, okay, well, this is obviously going in our favor. But then suddenly the ants start to get over the trench as they just start climbing over their drowned brothers' bodies as they like float to the surface, or they just pile up so much that they just climb over. And so quickly everyone gets back over the second trench, except for two guys, John and Bob. They fucked around a little too long, and they get fucking medievaled. And so Steve quickly throws a lit match, by the way, into the second trench, and the gasoline lights up and creates a wall of fire as the ants begin to just headlong straight into the fire. And this just kind of happens, like this just kind of goes on for like a day. And so, while the village is safe for the moment, they realize that the gasoline won't stay on fire forever. Honestly, I'm surprised that it stayed on fire for very long, considering that you poured it into a trench made of dirt, and it's gasoline. It wouldn't stay on fire very long. So while everyone's just, panicking, realizing, okay, the gasoline's going to go out soon, either that or the ants are going to get through after, their bodies start piling up as they tend to do, when stuff dies a lot. But if there were ants and it was fire, I don't know how they would keep piling up. I think it would. So Steve, he has to think. He has to brain blast a way out of this mess, out of this apocalyptic swarm of ants. And then he realizes, wait, there's a dam somewhere. I think it's close enough to the village, close enough to run to, apparently. But then everyone's like, but Steve, as soon as you run out there, you'll get eaten alive. And Steve says, wait, I have this old 19th century diving suit, the one with like the big old cartoony metal helmet, all that jazz. If I wear that, maybe it'll give me enough time to get to the dam. And everyone thinks, wow, Steve.
If only you could see how stupid you sound right now.
So, by dawn of the next day, dawn of the ants, there are just like 8-foot tall burned bodies of ants on the other side of the fire. And the gasoline is burnt almost entirely. Like I don't know how tall it is. I don't know if this is even important. Anyway, so Steve is in his cartoony diving suit. And then he says, everyone get onto the roofs of the buildings. Once I break open the dam, the ants will die. So, anyway, Steve gets ready and he runs through the fire and then runs through the wall of dead ants, and he just starts booking it to the dam. Like he's full on dead sprint. He puts Usain Bolt to shame with how fast he's going. Steve is a beast. That is until the ants start swarming him and just biting into his diving suit. He keeps running and running and running, and the ants eventually break through the diving suit and start eating at his legs. And Steve can't really, run if his legs are getting eaten. So he kind of like stops for a little bit, but then he's like, I'm Steve, I gotta do this. And he gets to the dam, and somehow, some way, he breaks the dam. I don't know who made this dam, but it's not very stable. But he breaks the dam, and all the water that the dam was holding floods into the valley and drowns the ants. It takes Steve with it. And everyone on the roofs of the building of the village, they see the water coming and all the dead ants. And they're just sitting there and thinking, wow, Steve really went out the way he lived.
Stupid.
But then they see him. Steve, despite his diving suit on with the metal helmet is floating on top of the water near the village, and they fish him out of the water and get him out of the diving suit. And his legs are like kind of hurt, but not really. I can't remember. And they think he's dead. But then he wakes up and he says, "That was a lot of ants." And that's the end of the story. What was the theme of that story? Can you tell me? Was the moral to not leave food out so you don't get eaten by a giant swarm of paranormal ants? Probably not. Anyway, that's the story. I can't remember what it was called, who wrote it. I just remember that it was in 6th grade, and I think it was a comic/manga kind of thing. I don't know. Anyways, that was the story. Like, subscribe, all that jazz, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. And, I don't know. Go call Hassan Piker a slur or something. Burp. Yeah, see you right there.